Now, let's talk a little about intention, because I think you're talking there very wisely, and as a, almost as a theologian, if you will, although a lot of theologians aren't wise, but I think you're bringing in a richer perspective than, because they've kind of stopped and think short of that. And one response to your elaboration of intention that I have that might help in terms of language is that Meister Eckhart and the creation and the tradition in general, but most people don't hear much about this, talks about these two phases of divinity, the Godhead and God. God is about history and creation, and also liberation and redemption. But the Godhead is strictly about isness. And the Godhead is very transcendent, and we were in the Godhead before we were born. But when we were born, we entered history and creation. And that's when God kind of took over, you see. And from that perspective, Eckhart will say that God evolves as creatures evolve. And so your arriving on the scene has changed God forever, as has everyone and every being that's come along. That we all represent different faces of the one face, as Nicholas Akusa puts it. So, the God is about history, but the Godhead is about mystery. And you were articulating very richly this mystery God side of God. Like Eckhart says, the Godhead has no name, will never be given a name, and we'll never know, just what you're talking about. And Aquinas says the most we can know about God is that we do not know God. Okay. So it's the apophatic divinity, is what it's called, because of the Greek word darkness, apophatic. Whereas the God of light, we can see all the creatures and all the results. So what I hear you calling for is more of the apophatic divinity. And of course, this is also very Buddhist, that Buddhists are reluctant even to use the word God because they have this stuff. But the Jewish tradition, too, was not allowed to use the name or write the name twice a year. Yeah. But what have we done? We've stamped "In God We Trust" on every coin and dollar and NX missile. Yeah. And just before George Bush mentions God or Ronald Reagan in a speech, they cry. I mean, we've sentimentalized this whole control. So what you're calling for, I think, is very substantive. Yeah. And I like your specific language, the intention, because that introduces the whole issue of love. It's one thing to say, wow, this is an amazing universe, and who put it together, what architect, had this plan, and all that. There's another thing to say that there's love involved in this. It's not just, a kind of a neat place to be. Right. But I've never yet met a mind, whether it's a dog's mind or a cat's mind or any mind that I've encountered, that doesn't also love. So to talk about mind is not an abstraction about intelligence. It's saying something about love, will, intention as well. Yeah. And that's what I hear you calling for.
Yes. So since we're both in agreement, let me push a little further. Okay? Because